Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the first of two sessions on transformative practices in achieving an equitable and sustainable local food system. We've got 6 amazing speakers this morning that we're going to spotlight that have all worked on some innovative practices and success stories in community-based programs, environmental practices, farm to fork, fair labor, promising research, school feeding programs, lots more. We want you to get a chance to hear about the amazing work that they've all done, and hopefully help you think a little bit more expansively about what's possible as we really work to build better food systems, and maybe even offer a bit of a blueprint of how you can take some of these lessons learned and apply it to your own work. I'm Jonathan Kaufman. I'm going to be moderating today. I'm from Third Plateau. And I'm really excited to introduce our first speaker, Chef Santana Diaz, who's the executive chef at UC Davis Health. Santana, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for the introduction. And good morning, everyone here on Pacific timing. So, wanted to talk about here at the hospital how we are able to transition from what the stigma of what hospital food may or may not have in your mind, and how we've been looking to transition that into a true farm to fork program, being that we're located here in what is, America's famed farm to fork capital. And so as we look at those opportunities, it all starts with seasonal and local ingredients, right? So, what we have here pictured, these are examples of just what we have going on in our operation. These happen to be whole food plant-based options. The lower left picture is actually a vegan burger that was implemented in 2018 when we participated in the community, like citywide of Sacramento vegan burger challenge, and actually became we got second place for the people's vote when it came to taste. Really we're able to compete against other restaurants and things. And so it's about getting other entities and other food operations the chance to talk about what is going on in a place that is maybe not as expected to see it. So, when we take things into consideration of how we made this program possible and how we continue to evolve year over year, we're in our 4th year of this transition now. Started with establishing and creating a vision and a mission. And so, what we do is we really try to look at what this program is supposed to represent, and taking our entity into consideration, which of course in a hospital setting, it's important to talk about health and healing, and why we are doing this in the first place. And then at the same time, see if we can promote community involvement and community benefit. Education is very important. And so we came up with the acronym, something simple, something that our frontline staff can remember and associate with. So that way the educational process can happen from not only our executive leadership and our leadership here within our food nutrition services department, but also all the way to the frontline staff that greets and sees our patients and our staff in the retail setting. Presentation matters. This sounds simple, but if we just exploit the colors of what's in season and the bounty of the region with its produce, with our produce, these are real dishes. These actually are whole food plant-based that are featured here. And it's something to be said. It's it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And one of my favorite little sayings is just keep it simple. A lot of places have talked about large institutions. We think about is this even possible, right? Can this happen? And so when we look at what we're trying to do is, yes, make it possible, create the buzz, right? So just simply focusing on the color, right? Talking about the staff, why is it important to them, right? Because without the staff and without your team supporting it, it's just words, and nothing ever really changes. And the most important part of a program like this is action. So, getting them involved, getting the team involved on ideas, what they want to see, whether it's plant-based options, or if it's, sourcing local and sustainable or regenerative proteins, whether it be chicken, beef, or even lamb. So, we are over a 625 bed facility. We do have 38 different diets that we adhere to. So when I look at what we do and create for recipes here, It's something that I know that can go through and cascade down to any entity. What does that mean? Well, I can't necessarily take the recipes from an arena or sports complex or the local restaurant because it may not fit into any of the 38 diets that we have to adhere to. But one of the things we want to be is not living in a silo. So share these recipes and information and cascade that down to anyone that is willing to look at implementing something like this in a scale in their environment, in their program. So of course, buy-in, right? It doesn't necessarily matter what we want to do as individuals if we don't have the support from our executives, right? So, you know, one of the first quotes that I said when I was fathoming coming here and onboarding in the hospital setting was because they had the interest of incorporating a farm to fork program here, and I basically just stated the obvious: if it was cheap and easy, everyone would already be doing it, right? And so the unfortunate situation of what our food system is facing is basically the repercussions of what's gone on with the industry, right? So everything's been focused on price. But if we focus on price, we start ending up with substitutes and things within our food that's not even real food, right? And so that leads to other things that, well, we won't have to touch on that. But the whole reason why a hospital exists is because it's a reactionary place for, you know, whatever ailment somebody has. A lot of that maybe has to do with what we ingest and feed our bodies every day. So community engagement, of course, and economic benefits are important. We focus on that along with sustainability and waste and health management. So when we talk about this too, say, is it really a sustainable program? There's a lot of challenges that are faced here. And the numbers I know are a little bit blurry there and small, but the reality of it is we take into consideration the budgets, right? Everyone has a budget. And so these numbers, we are developing 2021's data. And I know, you know, we all understand that these last year and a half or 18 months has been different numbers due to our pandemic, but we're still proving the proof of concept, right? When we first opened, or when I first started here, we were at 16.46 local and sustainable spend. And then within 18 months, we were up to 41%. And we are trending, even in a pandemic, still at 46% here from this last review. Again, climate-friendly foods don't need to be complicated. Simple things like on the left there is just a glimpse or a shot of our roasted beet poke, right? I think it's important that I kind of touch on some of these things, like when I mentioned health and waste management. You know, we collaborate with Copia, which helps our food program close the circle and divert waste, right? This also helps with our UC Davis Health program with assisting some of the socioeconomic factors within our community by providing good quality food overages to local food banks. So in this case right now, we are working with the Salvation Army, Next Moves Family Shelter, and the Davis Community Meals and Housing Programs. So it's not always about what's being sourced and what's coming in the door, but what's actually going out the door and what's going into our waste receptacles. We're trying to be as responsible as we can. So some of the ways that we kind of look at being creative on budgets that I touched on earlier was, where do you find the money, right? Because not everything's free. So we looked at some waste diversion costs that we were able to pull some money from, and just me actually asking our executive leadership and finance teams, can I just keep the same budget that I had last year or year over year, right? Just let me reallocate funds. And so we're able to look at that with some of these examples here. And just really diving deep in managing the program and what opportunities kind of surfaced from that. One of the big ones there, the last bullet point, was the omission of the single-use flatware to reusable dining serviceware, and which created a $100,000 year-over-year reallocation that goes directly to food. So, and then as we try to get creative as well and educate, thought I'd mention, we did started from Earth Day. We do a CSA program within our retail spaces. So out of the 2.4 million average meals a day that we, or not a day, a year that we provide, so it works out to about 6,700 a day. we saw that 4,000 of those transactions were happening, daily in our retail spaces. So we decided to introduce the Csa Box Program. So since its inception on Earth Day in May, we've sold over 2,200 of those, and it changes monthly, and we add recipes, and we actually use these recipes within our operations. So it's actually something that people get to take advantage of, not only as possibly a patient, but our staff and our visitors are patients as well. So also, when you try to get creative, is try to figure out how does your program benefit, right? So whether it's a school, another large institution is looking at how does the state, look at your program. And in this case, since we're trying to source majority or as much as we can from the state, we ask for assistance. And so we're able to apply for grant funding, which helps us with data collection and, it just helps us with some of the offsetting of some of the costs of this program. So, that's pretty much where I'm at there with this program and our team, and just a brief overview of what we have going on here at UC Davis Health.
Fantastic. Santana, thank you so much. I'm really stuck by a couple of things. One, the trauma of having to cook for 38 different diets is giving me a bit of a heart attack. But there was something in one of your slides that talked about making the healthy choice the easy choice, which is so simple but so profound. And I'm really intrigued about how we build sort of access and education to build those habits, so that healthy food actually is the easiest and most accessible food for us. So thank you very, very much for sharing. We do have a Q&A feature that people want to submit questions. Please feel free to submit questions there. I'm going to keep us moving though, so that we can make sure we get to all of our amazing speakers. So next up, I'd like to invite Catherine Howard, the President of Community Vision. Catherine, what would you like to share with us today?
Thanks so much. So hello, everybody. As just mentioned, my name is Catherine Howard. I'm the president of Community Development Financial Institution called Community Vision Capital and Consulting. And I'm here today to talk to you about a program that we run called California Freshworks. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of a mix up with my slides, so you'll just be seeing me during the presentation. So back in 2011, the California Freshworks Fund, as it was then called, was launched as a lending program to finance and bring grocery stores and other healthy food retail businesses to disinvested communities across California. And the intent was to address inequitable access to affordable and healthy food. It was a program that was grounded in public health and looked at grocery stores and food retail as a way to support improved community health outcomes. And over the course of 5 years, the program invested about $60 million in communities across the state, primarily in large-scale grocery stores. And while these were, obviously positive outcomes, at the end of 5 years, Freshworks' main funder, which is the California Endowment, undertook a look back and wanted to think about a reinvention of the program. And I'm telling you that history because I think it's important to show how programs can evolve when funders, program managers make an intentional effort to listen to communities, to be a humble co-creator with communities, and when lenders, such as my organization, and investors recognize that flexibility and creativity really require some risk. So in 2016, the California Endowment asked my organization, Community Vision, to reinvent Freshworks with an eye towards building a financing and technical support program that enabled greater flexibility, greater responsiveness, and investment into critical community-driven innovations. And given this great responsibility, we took a really community-centered approach to program development. We went out and we listened to the ideas and solutions of local leaders who are working on an equitable and sustainable food system that nourishes all communities. So, still grounded in the idea of healthy food access, but a more systemic lens. And we grounded this process in a perspective that centered Black communities, Indigenous communities, and communities of color as experts. We prioritized relationship building and facilitating pathways for communities to realize the vision that they had for themselves. And as we listened and worked to incorporate what we had been hearing from communities, we expanded on Freshworks' original mission by seeking to support catalytic food enterprises across the value chain that were building an equitable food system. And I want to flag that for a second because it's an important distinction to move a program that had mostly been focused on grocery stores as a solution to a program that focuses on systems change. And to do this, we knew that we needed to develop some new approaches. So we moved Freshworks from being only really a lending program to a program that invested in many ways. And let me talk through those a little bit. So first, we knew that we really wanted to provide technical assistance grants that help entrepreneurs get custom assistance that they need to move their project along, and particularly in the early stages. So we heard many times over from communities and from entrepreneurs that one of the most challenging issues that they faced was finding and paying for the expertise that they needed to turn their ideas into reality. And while we knew that every community and every project was different, we wanted to create a way to support individual, really tailored assistance rather than just saying, like, here's a one-size-fits-all technical assistance program, hope it works for you. To complement the technical assistance grants, we created something that we call market making, which is really just a strategy to cultivate opportunities, build relationships in underserved communities, and support longer term food projects and moving from concept to reality. Let me spend a little bit of a second on this. It was a really important part of our program. So we knew from program design that if we didn't have people out in communities, we would miss out on important opportunities. So Freshworks employed trusted community development professionals to act as relationship managers and resource navigators within their communities. Our market makers provide catalytic long-term support for equitable food initiatives. And this has included things like, again, some more delivering tailored technical assistance to move businesses along in their life cycle, but also things like supporting their business efforts to be ready to apply for financing and investing in a broader ecosystem. So building support in the food justice space more broadly. And I'll explain why this is so important in a minute. We also wanted to utilize a network of community lenders to offer loans to food businesses, because we knew if it was just us or just a single lender, we would not be able to appropriately meet the variety of financing needs across the state. And so we wanted to make sure that there was a diversity in the lenders. And then finally, we wanted to created a credit enhancement for our lenders. So basically a guarantee program that lowered the cost of capital to the borrowers, and then also incentivized our lenders to push beyond their underwriting boxes and take on greater risk for investment. So let me give you the top line results of the program over the course of 3 years, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about a couple of our clients just to illustrate the work and the lessons we've learned. So Freshworks relaunched in 2017, and we had a 3-year sort of pilot program period to take a look at what the project could do. And over the course of those 3 years, which want to know included shelter in place, which obviously changed the world where we've been working pretty substantially. The program worked with over 100 businesses and enterprises. We invested $80 million through 66 transactions, and that included $1 million in technical assistance grant capital. And these investments span California, with most of the capital going to our program priority geographies in the Bay Area, San Joaquin Valley, and Greater Los Angeles. And this is really important for us. Fully 87% of the dollars that we invested went to enterprises owned by people of color or run by people of color if they were nonprofits. And while those numbers give you a sense of scale of the program, I think the best way to understand how Freshworks engages and invests in communities is to tell you about a few of our clients. So this is where, if I had slides, I would put up a picture of Miriam Martinez and the incredibly cheerful logo, her Fresno-based business, La Yaca Mobile, which specializes in vegan, affordable, and plant-based Mexican food in the Central Valley. Freshworks first worked with Miriam in 2018, and it was a pretty short engagement at the time. We provided her a small grant to help with outreach and marketing strategy for La Yaca Mobile's food truck business. And then at around the same time, on a parallel track, we had partnered with a local market maker in the Fresno area named Carissa Garcia, and 2 organizations, the Pan Valley Institute and Cultiva La Salud. And we were pursuing a strategy for developing a commissary kitchen specifically focused on businesses owned by women, immigrant women in the Fresno area and the larger valley. So we were pursuing these 2 things independently. And then fast forward to 2019, and Miriam and her husband, Roberto, were working to expand their business through catering contracts. And La Yaca Mobile became a member of a local commissary kitchen that was owned by an organization that unfortunately eventually went out of business. And while it was a disappointment, obviously, for that organization to go out of business, its board offered to sell the commissary kitchen business to La Yaca because of Miriam's commitment to the local community and their board's desire for the kitchen to continue to be used as a community resource. So Miriam came back to Freshworks when this offer was on the table. And she and Roberto wanted to pursue the opportunity, but they knew they really needed planning support. And through our community networks, Freshworks was introduced to a business consultant who was fluent in Spanish, which is Miriam's primary language, with relevant business planning experience. So we gave 2 Freshworks grants that paid for business planning, giving Miriam and Roberto the tailored support they needed to take on the kitchen project. And that included things like developing pro formas and projections and creating a business plan. Our local market maker then connected Miriam with the folks at the Pan Valley Institute, making connections between La Yaca and the other food businesses that Pan Valley had been working with. Freshworks then made a highly flexible, very low cost loan to finance La Yaca's purchase of the kitchen. And the newly renamed Hotspot Kitchen opened earlier this summer, serving as a home base for a number of local food businesses owned by people of color, primarily women. And this story sort of illustrates some of our key takeaways from Freshworks, that in order to invest in an equitable food system, you need to build networks and trust, that you need to invest in more than just financing. Market making was a critical aspect of this work. Carissa's knowledge of the landscape of food enterprises and entrepreneurship in the local community was really critical in coordinating with Pan Valley Institute and Community Vision to connect food enterprises to the Hotspot Kitchen. Similarly, our community network was really key to connecting La Yaca with a business consultant who had both a cultural and business understanding of Miriam and Roberto's goals. And because, without these resources, the time to build trust, to connect with community, to invest in local ecosystems and networks, there's just fewer opportunities to invest in capital into businesses that are really, truly serving communities. So let me tell you about 2 quick stories, more stories to illustrate why a community-rooted food ecosystem is so important, and also how it can stand up in time of crisis. Many of you watching may know the organization Urban Tilth. They're a deeply rooted farming organization in Richmond, California. And among other things, Urban Tilth runs a low-cost CSA focused on local food security. And with advent of shelter in place, demand for Urban Tilth CSA quickly expanded, particularly to serve homebound seniors and folks who are high risk. And Urban Tilth responded to this community demand because they were already really deeply working in their community, but needed capital to do so. At the same time, we had pivoted our Freshworks grant program to provide grants to support community responses to COVID. So Freshworks was able to pair grant capital and loan capital to help Urban Tilth expand its CSA capacity, buy a van so they could make deliveries and allow people to remain at home, and buy additional processing equipment that they needed for the rapid expansion of CSA's operations. Another story is in Los Angeles. Freshworks has a client called Equitable, and they are a healthy, fast casual restaurant that is ready-to-go meals priced to be affordable in all communities. And they also quickly pivoted to put their existing central kitchen infrastructure to work with a variety of other nonprofits in the city and in the county so that they could create and bring meals to seniors, to people with disabilities, to low-income families. And to do this, Equitable had to really expand very rapidly and to do it in a different way than they had planned for their normal operations and business. And the Freshworks market maker in Los Angeles flagged this and said, look, this is a really, really important opportunity. It's really going to be able to substantially serve communities that are being hard hit by COVID in Los Angeles. And so connected Equitable with one of our Freshworks lenders. And since the business was a startup, Freshworks provided loan guarantees to secure the financing that Equitable needed to meet their community needs and respond rapidly in time of crisis. Again, these 2 emergency community responses could only happen because there were organizations and businesses that knew their communities, were responsive to the unique community needs, and were able to access tailored resources and networks that could support their work. So I really appreciate your time and attention today, even without the benefit of slides, and want to leave you with this. To effectively invest in food systems change, we've implemented Freshworks in a way that consistently prioritizes the mission of the program, building an equitable food system, and the needs of business owners and the needs of communities. And this showed up in ways like the new tools that we created, and with BIPOC entrepreneurs and community-centered food projects as the primary beneficiaries. And over the course of the program, we have seen that prioritizing community-centered impact through cultivating connections in communities, supporting the work of BIPOC-owned food businesses and projects requires intentionality and significant resources. This is type of work is really time intensive, and it takes effort to build trusted relationships, especially among entrepreneurs and communities who've experienced decades of disinvestment due to systemic racism within both the finance and the food industries. So we hope that Freshworks model demonstrates to communities, to lenders, to philanthropy, government, other stakeholders, that building a community-centered food system requires time, connection, capital, and resources, but that with those kinds of investments, a new food system that supports and nourishes all communities, and particularly disinvested communities, is possible. If you'd like more information on the Freshworks program, we've recently released our 3-year program evaluation, which we're happy to share. You can contact me at choward@communityvisionca.org. I'll say that again, choward@communityvisionca.org. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Catherine, thank you so much for sharing. This is absolutely fantastic. No slides needed. Powerful stories and amazing progress. Really, really exciting to see, and gives me a lot of optimism about where how we can really start to invest more in our communities in this way. I'm going to keep us moving and bring up our next presenter, Aaliyah Moreno, who's the Yolo Grown Program Coordinator at Yolo Food Bank. Aaliyah, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Like Jonathan said, my name is Aaliyah Moreno, and I am the Yolo Grown Program Coordinator for Yolo Food Bank. I've been running this program for 3 years now, and it's been a very successful and very fulfilling job. So this is kind of just a picture of one of the farms that we work with. It's one of our largest partners, River Garden Farms. I'll go into a little more detail throughout the slides, but this is I'll be highlighting kind of the history of the program, how it kind of came about, the goals of the program, our partners, and just some key highlights on what we've been doing in the program so far. So the Yolo Grown program, just to put a little bit of history on the program, it was created through a 5-year grant that was funded through the Yochadihi Wentu Nation tribe and the community fund. The goal of the program was to increase the access and the consumption of fruits and vegetables in Yolo County among food insecure residents. And this was the grant actually ended August of 2021 of this year, but because of the success of the program, Yolo Food Bank is going to continue to run the program just because of the success of it so far. And a little bit about just kind of where the fruits and vegetables that are coming in through this program goes. So through the Yolo Food Bank, we have nearly 130 distributions countywide each month. So that's anything between what the Yolo Food Bank actually coordinates ourselves, or those are distributions that are ran through our local nonprofits that we work with. We have a lot of local nonprofits that have their own clientele that they serve, and so they'll utilize us as a service where they'll purchase at a very minimal cost fruits and vegetables and other items as well. And another distribution that we have through the food bank is our Kids Farmers Market. And we run a handful of these through our program coordinators. They are free fruits and vegetables for kids at the schools. It kind of will vary between 4 to 5 different fruits and vegetables that they can come through the line, kind of set up as a Kids Farmers Market style. Before the pandemic, we kind of had an educational aspect to it. So we would bring in, local farmers who actually would donate some of these crops to kind of highlight how they're grown, just to get the kids a little more familiar with the items, because most times than not, they have never had the opportunity to try some of these items that are coming in through the market. And so that's kind of the Meet Your Farmer program that we hope to slowly bring back throughout the year. And then another program that we have is the Eat Well Yolo distribution. So that's a free food distribution. We have a bunch of them throughout the weeks throughout Yolo County, and these are items from the fresh fruits and vegetables from Yolo Grown program, but also we have additional items such as the breads, the dairy, the eggs, and all the other items that families would need to provide for a full meal. And our last program that the fruits and vegetables comes through is the Eat Home Yolo program, which was a program that came out of kind of the pandemic as well. It's a home delivery program that's ran by one of our coordinators at the food bank. It also is heavily ran by volunteers because we have a lot of volunteer drivers who will kind of have a list of residents and homes that they will deliver these boxes of fruits, vegetables, and also other items as well. And, you know, when you think of Yolo Grown Partners, it kind of some things kind of come into play when we think about that. And that is our partners who, you know, donate their excess crops. And this kind of is anything, you know, if it's a farm and they kind of go through with their crew and they harvest items for the market and for buyers. And then they kind of have those seconds still in the field that they're not going to sell and they're kind of just still in the fields. Well, that's when they call myself up or Yolo Food Bank and ask us if we want those items. And of course we say yes. You know, they're perfectly great items for us to hand out to our clients at the food bank. And we have a lot of those who will call us up and have those things readily available for us. Another, you know, key aspect of the Yolo Grown Partners is they will grow, we'll have some farms who grow specific crops specifically for Yolo Food Bank. And so we just wrapped up the season with one of our large partners, the River Garden Farms. You know, they brought in almost, I think, 75,000 pounds this summer just from their growing project, which was really successful. It was the third year that we've done this with them. And that's just one of the farms. We've had, you know, Durst Organics has grown crops for the food bank as well. And then we have another kind of interesting situation where we're Yolo County, we're in a really great space where there's a lot of seed companies. So there's a lot of seed trial fields being conducted throughout the county. And with those fields, they will grow the crops kind of just to see the, you know, the taste, the quality, how it looks. And then they'll invite buyers out from all over the country to see if they want to purchase their seeds. And then after, once the field days and once everyone has looked at the fields, those crops are still in the field. And so we've established great relationships with them where they will invite us out with volunteers and, you know, we'll come out and we'll glean the crops that are in, you know, great conditions, great quality. This picture right here is actually one of our partners, Lark Seed, which is located in Woodland. They had, you know, bell peppers, tomatoes, melons, squash, and it's been really successful. We work with quite a few seed companies who allow us to come out with volunteers as well. And so just some key highlights of the program. Right now we have about, you know, more or less than 50 Yolo Grown Partners right now. And that can go from anything between, you know, seed companies, like I mentioned. We work with a lot of local farms, you know, those are small organic farms, but, you know, also larger conventional farms who will donate some of their crops. And then we also have community gleaner organizations, which are we have two that we work with. They kind of are more backyard gleaners that we like to call them. They'll kind of have their community groups and they'll pick from, you know, residential homes and orchards. Usually it's a lot of fruit. They'll kind of create their own little events with that. They'll collect a bunch of fruit and they'll donate all that to the food bank as well. And then we have, you know, like I said, farms growing crops for the food bank. This last year so far, we've gotten a wide variety of crops, which is really great for us. Starting off in June, you know, we had corn, we had like a bunch of melons, we had a variety of squash that's been coming in this fall. And back in the spring, like I mentioned, Durst Organics grew broccoli, cabbage, beets for the food bank, and all of that was harvested by volunteers of the food bank as well. And to speak on volunteers, you know, a lot of the programs, the farmers are a large part of it, but also the volunteers. We need the manpower to get those crops in the field, and our volunteers have always showed up, and they are, you know, they're very passionate about food insecurity in our county, and they, you know, it's the same volunteers that come out, it's new faces as well, and really allows us to maximize the crop donations that are coming in, so we can get the most out of those fields before they till it under or before, you know, they disc it under. And just to kind of put in perspective on, you know, how many pounds of fruits and vegetables we're bringing in through the Yolo Grown program. So this kind of goes back to 2017 to to 2021 now and what's projected that we hope to see for the rest of the year. And so the purple illustrates retail rescue. So that is anything between Trader Joe's, Target, Walmart, all the fruits and vegetables that we get in through those large partners of ours through Feeding America Network. And then the green in the middle is the Yolo grown pounds that are coming in and what we project. So far, and then the yellow is the farm to family pounds that are coming in. And so farm to family is a great program through the California Association of Food Banks. It's a way for growers in California to connect with food banks, to purchase large bulk produce items. And while that's a really great program for food banks, we like to think that Yolo Food Bank is in a really agriculturally abundant area. And so we really try to utilize our partners and our agricultural networks in the area to try and procure as much so that will decrease the cost that we have to purchase on crops that are coming from elsewhere. And as you can see, we projected to increase our pounds of Yolo grown this year and decrease the amount of pounds that we're actually purchasing, and also relying heavily on retail rescue that comes in, like I mentioned, through our Feeding America partners. And this is kind of just the kind of put in perspective on like the scale that the food bank is working in. The number of individuals served has greatly increased over time, and especially from 2020, we've had a huge increase in our individuals served, and we can only predict that this will maybe continue to stay the same, if not increase even more. So with our program, we're really trying to ensure that the fruits and vegetables that are coming through that are being grown in Yolo County and are being left in the fields, we want to make sure that they get into the hands of the clients and the food insecure residents who need them. So that's where the program comes in. That's why it's been really successful for us to continue to try and to bring on more partners and to spread the word on what we're doing at the food bank. And that concludes my slides. Thank you so much. And I look forward to the rest of the conversations today.
Aaliyah, thank you so much. What a phenomenal example of a single organization really thinking at an ecosystem level and finding ways to innovate across all of it. So really, really inspiring and amazing work. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to bring up our next speaker, Claudia Carter, who's the Executive Director of the California Wheat Commission, who I believe has a pre-recorded session for us and will be around for Q&A afterwards.
Good morning, I'm Claudia Carter, and I'm the Executive Director of the California Wheat Commission. Thank you for having me here today. My background is in food science. I have a master's degree in cereal science, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD in nutrition from North Dakota State University. And it's all related, the projects that we do here are all related to wheat. So let's talk a little bit more about that. California Wheat Commission represents wheat farmers, and we do market development, research, outreach, and education on behalf of them. So let's look at the California wheat overview. California is the largest milling state by capacity. We can mill more than 12 million pounds of grain per day, which is mainly white flour. However, we are only producing about 600 million pounds of wheat per year. That will satisfy about 10% of the California wheat needs. Out of that, less than 5% in California and actually in the US is whole wheat flour production, which will be important for our conversation today. So what's the problem? Exactly that there's only less than 5% of whole wheat flour production in the entire US. Whole wheat flour production used to be higher when stone mills were the predominant mill that were producing flour in the US and other parts of the world. When the roller mill came, that became more predominant, the refined white flour milling. And today we have basically enriched fortified flour that is compensating the nutrients that were taken away from the whole grain and whole kernel, that is the bran and the germ, but has important nutrients such as fiber, B vitamins, and then many other minerals that are important to us, such as iron and magnesium. So there is a low capacity of whole wheat flour production in general. That makes it really hard for us to have access to whole wheat flour based products. So there are fewer local mills, and in general, whole wheat flour is higher in price. So there are cost constraints, but also there's just in general restricted access to products that are made with whole wheat that actually taste good. Because of that, and since we wanted to work with schools, we see that a solution to increase whole grain consumption in children that currently is less than 3% in the whole US. So less than 3% of children actually consume the recommended dietary guidance whole grains, that is 48 grams of whole grain per day. That's about 3 to 5 servings, making one serving making it one slice of bread, for example. So we think that allowing or helping the schools to have access to more whole grain based products is a solution worthwhile seeking. So we applied for the grant to develop a project and a program with the schools where we're teaching nutrition education by growing wheat on their gardens. We're developing a curriculum, and we're also developing recipes and training for the food service managers so they're able to utilize these in the school cafeteria. And this is all with the full commitment and support to the schools that they need from us. So let's talk a little bit more about how
come and
this
join us in our
project
journey
is
of
going. So
growing,
the project is
learning,
called Wheat
and
to
eating
School.
the foods that we can grow at our school gardens. Come on, let's explore. Hi, come and join us in our journey of growing, learning, and eating the foods that we can grow at our school.
So this grant that we received from CDFA to be able to set up this program, the Wheat to School, it really is like planting a seed. So everything started by growing grain back in 2018 with Dingle Elementary here in Woodland. That's the first time that we did this Wheat to School, and now we're calling it. But thanks to this grant, we're going to be able to bring this project to 2 rural school districts in San Luis Obispo they're called Shandon and San Miguel. So the whole idea of this project is taking a multi-sectoral approach. And that means that we have a private and public partnership. We have UC Davis, California Wheat Commission, CDFA as the public entities. And then we also have the schools, of course. And then we have a mill that's Grist and Toll, that's part of the private industry. They are our partners in this project. But let's not forget our most important partners, the farmers. So farmers are also instrumental of this project, because what we're trying to do is bring more local wheat produced to schools in a form of whole grains. So Fritz Durst, John Egg, for example, are farmers that are selling their wheat to the schools. The school is procuring this wheat, is paying for it. And then we also have farmers like Larry Hand who are volunteering to help us. And then Kenny Ann is another farmer who is helping us to grow the wheat at one of the sites that we have almost 1 acre of land to produce wheat for the educational component. So in the next stage of any project comes a harvest, right? So here we can show you what we have done at this school in Dingle Elementary, which was we grew the grain and then we harvested with the children. The children were able to learn about different vocabulary that we use in wheat farming, like threshing, which is removing the chaff of the grain so we can clean it and get the seed. So all this is to teach the children how is wheat grown and how is it harvested and all the hard work that goes into it. The next part is actually making the product from the wheat that they harvest. So we're able to harvest the grain with the children, and then we're able to, what we will do with the schools in Shandon, San Miguel, is that with this grant, we were able to purchase a stone mill that is going to be in one school side, also pasta machines, tortilla machines, and provide them with everything else they need to make bread. So this wheat will be harvested, will be milled, and then they will be able to learn about the process that goes into making, for example, a pizza or a tortilla.
Wheat to School.
Many of our favorite foods, like bagels, pizza, and tortillas, are made from wheat.
So as we can see here, this program has a lot of elements to it. So we are developing curriculum for them, we're providing videos, but also we're sharing the recipes with videos so the food service managers can go back and see how they can make the product. So here you can see the recipe for the tortilla that we're making, that they're making with the flour that they're producing, directly sourced from the farmer. Also, they will be able to make pizza and focaccia. Here is an example of, you know, all the recipes, the products that they are able to make to satisfy and also feed the children something delicious and healthy as well, that is made with 100% whole wheat. So, and finally, it is really a whole process project where the children will be able, this is exactly the meal that they're going to be getting, that it's at the school, where we can make the whole wheat flour. And then eventually, for example, here, we were able to make the whole wheat pasta with the machines that they purchased. This is a commercial large scale pasta machine that they will be able to make pasta for the children to serve during lunchtime. So this is all with intention to help children learn more about wheat growing, production, harvesting, milling. But at the end, it's also to help them and encourage them to be able to consume more whole grains in a form of a product that they love, such as a macaroni and cheese or a pizza. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for your time. Here is our whole crew. We have the food service managers here, we have our farmer, we have Cal Poly professors who are also helping us with this project. We have a Cal Poly intern that is always there on site to help the teachers and to help the food service managers, and communicating with me to see if there's anything we need to do for them. Here in this picture, you can also see the superintendent and the principal, Shandon, and also we have our partners that are our millers. So if we do want to make changes in a food supply, it is very important to take a multi-sectoral approach. You need to bring all the people who are growing the food, who are processing it, who are making it, and the policy makers into one room to talk about the solutions that they want to accomplish. Without all of us working together, it is very difficult to make significant changes in our food supply chain, especially to feed children. I just want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate that you're listening to me today. I'm Claudia Carter. Goodbye.
Claudia, thank you so much. What a cool experiential education opportunity for those students. It's really, really amazing. To keep us moving and make sure we've got time for all of our other speakers, I want to invite Chelsea Miner, who's the Corporate Director of Public Affairs at Raley's. Chelsea, floor is yours.
Thanks, Jonathan. Very grateful to be here. Good morning to all of our audience. Really grateful to also be alongside of such incredible, inspirational leaders within our food system. As Jonathan mentioned, I work for Raley's Holdings. We're a family-owned grocery leader in the Western United States with actually a new acquisition that brought us to Arizona and New Mexico. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of one program here in our California market that's also expanding to some of our other work also in Nevada. So I'm going to kind of spend some time talking on a program that's both retail related, but also community centric. So as a purpose-driven organization, we focus a lot of our efforts on making sure that we are serving our customers in the best way. But in order to serve our customers, we realize that the reason we're here, right, is because of the communities in which we serve. So we also pride ourselves in being a community-centric organization. And I think that's one of our greatest strengths is our people and their desire to do what's right for our customers and our community. And so our community team has worked really hard on a project called Contract Grow that I want to share with you today. But part of that originated from our nonprofit. At Raley's, we support our own nonprofit with in-house. We handle all of the administrative costs for Raley's Food for Families. And if you've been to one of our stores, we hope that you donate at the check stand 365 days a year to support all of our food banks. And we do that through Feeding America. And we have 12 partners that help us across each of our jurisdictions. So if you donate in Rockland, your donation stays there locally. If you donate in Yolo County, it's going to actually go to the Yolo Food Bank, which has been an incredible partner. But it's been a very progressive nonprofit, right? That doesn't just give food, but also give substantial resources, both in the way that we deliver by providing it through our Raley's network. So they are getting private label product. So their costs are lower, significantly lower than they would have been if they went through the retail channels. But through partnering with Feeding America, we've been able to increase our efficiency and our procedures, but most importantly, impact and support more individuals. But what we've realized as the program has evolved is that it's not just about the substantial products like our peanut butters or our canned goods, but it's really making sure that our communities are getting access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And so Contract Grow was really about trying to help source, right, local products, some of which that are organic produce, to our local school districts and food banks within our communities. This approach is really about supporting and really connecting small scale farmers with our food banks who need these fruits and vegetables, right? Who is Yolo Food Bank just talked a little bit about how this is so important in order to get this into the food stream. So what do? We have partnered with Kitchen Table Advisors to identify many small farms that are working to scale, right? With the long-term goal, potentially to be in retail. There's an element of this program that gets us there. But really the idea is Raley's will fund a farmer. Let's say we give them a several $1,000 contract. It secures them so that they know that that crop can be produced. And then we partner them with one of our food banks. And we say to them, talk to the food bank and see what the food bank needs. So the food bank can identify some of those key items that they know are most important to those suffering from hunger. But it's also, again, that secured financial investment to the farmer so that he can make sure that that crop is going to be utilized. So not only are we reducing food waste, but we're getting, again, that fruits and vegetables into the hands of those that need it the most. This has been a really great way to also support local farms. One of the things we say at Raley's is that we've been farm to fork since 1935, since our inception. And so we know that this is a really important way, those purchase orders and those guarantees are an important way for these farmers to scale. So in a longer term investment, our hope is that the farmer could then be prepared to scale and serve to retail. So we have a living local program that really supports our local farmers that are within 50 miles of the individual store and location. And so what that means is that the farmer is delivering directly to the store. So that's less miles traveled. Again, that's less food waste. And that's making sure that we're giving our residents something that is actually grown in their backyard. And so that's been an incredible, also kind of, again, forward looking as a part of this program. So what does Raley's, do in this program, and why is this so innovative, right? So this is about food access to our food banks. This is, again, about less waste, right? So our farmers know exactly where this crop is going. So there's going to be less food waste and less items that are lost, right, in the food system. We're also supporting workforce development. Those are guaranteed jobs for those purchase orders. And so we're supporting making sure that we're keeping that fluidity. We understand firsthand the challenges around workforce right now, but specifically in our farming community, as we also try to pursue more innovative and thoughtful solutions. We remove the risk from both the farm and the food bank. And again, we're supporting some of our local farms in order to help them grow and scale and stay local. It is so important to us that I think in California, but specifically here in the farm to fork region, that we keep those farmers here and we keep that agricultural land active. So right now we're spending about $9 million to support these types of programs through our Food for Families program. We've originated this with the Yolo Food Bank. So there's a great local partnership with Fiery Ginger Farms in West Sacramento. So you're talking about the mileage from the farm to the distribution facility being, less than 20 miles, which is really exciting. We've also expanded to some other food banks, both across Monterey, Alameda, and Redwood City. And our goal for the 2021-2022 timeframe is to really expand it to our 12 food bank partners within Food for Families. And that's really this potential to know that we have this plethora of farms within the Northern California region that all could use access to this. And again, I think some kitchen table advisors have been participating throughout the week, and want to give them a great shout out and support for helping us identify those farmers and putting those pieces together so that we can make these great connections. We also, with our Fiery Ginger partnership in West Sacramento, we were able to give to Washington Unified School District. So we also see potential that this has legs to go to other needed sources. We want to make sure that our kids are learning about their fruits and vegetables and have access to those items as they're going through their school day. We know that a full stomach brings a bright mind. So with that, again, grateful to be here, grateful to work for a company that really sees this full circle, right? That just goes from the work that we do in our communities to support those in need, to giving back and making sure that our customers have access to the best fruits and vegetables. Back to you.
Chelsea, thank you so much for sharing. Really, really exciting. We see so many different efforts from the corporate space to try to get involved in a lot of this. And what I'm really struck by is just how relational and transformative your approach is, and it's focused on building infrastructure and capacity, and it's not transactional. And so really just kudos to you and the team, and it's exciting to see. I'm excited to see what comes next for you. Without further ado, I want to bring up our final speaker, Alexa Delwish, who is the Executive Director at the Center for Good Food Purchasing. Alexa, bring us home.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks to everyone for having me, the Yolo County Food Bank. I've learned so much from all the presenters today, and it's really an honor to be here. So let me see if, okay, let's begin. I'll start with a quick overview of the Center for Good Food Purchasing. We use the power of procurement to create a transparent and equitable food system that prioritizes the health and well-being of people, animals, and the environment. And we do this through the nationally networked adoption and implementation of the Good Food Purchasing Program by major institutions. Procurement is a powerful lever to advance equity and shift power to communities. Institutions like schools, hospitals, and jails spend billions of dollars on food each year, but most institutions have no idea where their food is coming from or how it's produced. And so the Good Food Purchasing Program offers a metric-based framework, tools, and support to ensure that our public food dollars are invested in a food system that promotes healthy and thriving communities, good jobs, local producers, environmental stewardship, and animal welfare, and is rooted in the principles of equity, transparency, and public accountability. For some quick history on the center, the Good Food Purchasing Program was created by the Los Angeles Food Policy Council in 2011. It's an extensive multi-stakeholder process that brought together hundreds of people from across all different sectors. In 2012, the program was adopted by the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Unified School District. And as interest in the program emerged from across the country, from many food policy councils and grassroots coalitions, and also institutions themselves, people noticed what was happening in Los Angeles. And so the Center for Good Food Purchasing was created to manage and house the growing Good Food Purchasing Program. The program has steadily grown over the last 10 years. We're now working with partners in 24 cities across 10 states. And that encompasses 60 public institutions, which represent school districts, municipal agencies, jails, hospitals, and universities. And in total, the Good Food Purchasing Program impacts over $1 billion in annual food purchases. So you can see that this is a slide of Los Angeles Unified School District, our first and one of our largest participants to use this model. They were able to make impacts across the 5 values over a number of years. That means 600,000 students have access to higher quality meals on a daily basis. And a couple of the highlights include the district's shift towards local purchasing that helped to create more local jobs, many of them in fresh cut processing and bakeries. The district's commitment also helped to increase wages by 40% and improve healthcare benefits for 320 truck drivers and warehouse workers. In California, there are 22 public institutions that are enrolled in the Good Food Purchasing Program. And these institutions spend about, close to $200 million a year on food. And this slide shows the average percentage of food purchased that aligns with the 5 good food values for all enrolled California institutions. And these percentages are based on the latest year's assessment for each institution. And then this slide here shows the breakdown of which certifications or other attributes are really driving the percentages in each of the value categories. So for example, here with local food, we can see that most local food purchases are coming from companies, larger businesses, and then smaller percentages coming from really small farms in California. So our growth strategy today is to focus on building the program, both in terms of our breadth, how many institutions and communities we're working with, but it's also around depth, because I think from the last slide, you can see that institutions are making good strides in the amount of good food or real food that they're purchasing, but there's a lot of opportunity to expand. So I realize this is a California crowd, but I did want to quickly highlight our depth strategy, which is really focused on a proof point city strategy. So New York City is the farthest along with this proof point concept. We're working with all municipal agencies that buy food across the city of New York to engage in the program. We assess their purchases. We make plans for collective action to increase the purchasing of good food. And what makes this possible is collaboration. And it's collaboration between the Mayor's Office of Food Policy, who takes the lead and invests in coordinated action and communications, and also an activated grassroots coalition of community-based organizations to advance policy strategies in support of good food purchasing. And 2 examples of current policy campaigns that they have underway to support good food purchasing in New York are at the state level. It's focused on expanding into a more progressive definition of what best value procurement contracting is. So overhauling how public procurement is done at the state level. And then at the municipal level, the coalition is in communication with the city council and the mayor's office to determine the most impactful and politically viable policy strategy to solidify a 5 values framework for good food purchasing that spans beyond a single administration. So just, I think 2 weeks ago, the mayor's office of food policy released all of the data across the 7 agencies that purchase food for the city of New York. Very detailed data. They also shared a citywide good food purchasing action plan that commits them to achieving certain targets in each of the value categories over 1, 3, 5, and 10 years, and how they're planning to get there. So it's a model that we think holds great potential in New York, but as of course in California, which is always the leader with everything we do. So happy to share more if anyone's interested. And with that, I think I will open it up and send it back to Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me.
Alexa, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And to all of our presenters, really just amazing to get to see this. I would love to actually have everybody, have all of our presenters into gallery view so we can all see each other. We'd love to start to ask some questions of you. I spent a lot of my time working in innovation, thinking about innovation, supporting innovation. And the one thing I've learned is that we fail more often than we succeed. And so as you're trying these new approaches and new programs and new ways of thinking about your work, I'm curious if any of you have stories to tell of where you've tried something and it hasn't worked as well as you maybe wanted, and how you sort of figured out how to persevere through it, or when and how to pivot to make it get to the success stories you shared today.
I could speak a little bit to that if I can kick us off. So, you know, I mentioned in my presentation that Freshworks had kind of two, right? We're in Freshworks 2.0, right? It's a second iteration. And I don't want to say that we failed in the first realm of Freshworks, because it was quite successful in many ways. But we did see a number of things within that project and program that we felt like we could do better. And so part of our taking a step back and with the endowment, and then really going out into community and saying, hey, we want to learn more, we want to listen, has been really important part of that. And I think that the key has been that we've positioned Freshworks as a learning program. So if something doesn't work, we iterate, and to be really open to the idea that, you know, particularly when you're trying new things, you know, and I work in capital, and we're not always going to necessarily, you know, get the products or the programs exactly right the first time. So it's all about, for us, listening, iterating, and then finding the path, you know, as we iterate.
That's so powerful, Catherine. And your approach to that, as you know, during your talk, you were talking about putting BIPOC members of your community and those entrepreneurs at the center and really building around them, which I would imagine means that you're getting the right type of feedback that's actually going to be useful. So it seems like you're really living what you preach on that.
We do our best.
Anybody else want to share about some hardships you've hit along the way as you've gotten to the success stories you're at now?
I'll touch briefly on that. You know, it's for broadliners, you know, that can remain nameless. The reality of it is change is not always welcomed. They have their own agendas and programs, right? And so as the evolution of the system that's presenting itself, whether it be because of sustainability, climate change, all these things, health, we have to be persistent. And it's taken me years, but one of the broadliners knows that when I say I'm going to order something different, here you go, pick this line item up, create a SKU, figure it out. And until you figure it out, I'm going to just buy it direct, not through you. So financially, it incentivizes them to actually pick it up and agree with the program. And so, but that's come through from a lot of dead ends, a lot of potholes I've stepped in, a lot of failures. So again, touching on what Catherine has mentioned, it's not something that's easy, but I'm always welcome to help in whatever capacity of anybody that's listening here on this, with this summit, for helping push for change.
Thanks, Santana. So building from that, one of the things, oh, sorry, Alexa, were you about to jump in? You can go for it.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I always like to think about when we're trying to really transform practices and find some new breakthroughs and new ways of doing something, it often requires unlikely bedfellows. And I'm curious if any of you have found yourself in meetings and building partnerships with groups or individuals that maybe have surprised you about how much you've aligned in terms of what you're trying to build and found some new ways to work together.
I can go.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so one of the examples I can give is the Yolo Farm to Fork organization. They came and knocked on our doors and say, hey, we wanted to grow wheat for the first time at a school here in Woodland. And what can you do to help us? And I say, oh, I can do a lot of things. So I think because, you know, sometimes they think that as the board, you know, the different boards that are in California, including like the Almond Board or the Rice Commission, they're working on you know, on export markets or things that might not be related to the domestic market. We also do work on domestic markets, and we do have educational programs. So I think finding, you know, the different, you know, an approach where you can knock on the door of somebody else that might have a little bit more of the resources and tools and what you're trying to do is exactly what we did with the Yolo Farm to Fork. And today, our commitment has, become stronger to the point that now we're expanding this program to other school districts. So yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. Was someone else about to jump in with an answer as well?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think so. Both in the early days of the Good Food Purchasing Program in Los Angeles, we saw that really the greatest benefit was of the work was bringing together the initial working group that spanned both. We had labor at the table, we had environmentalists, animal welfare advocates, public health experts, we had institutions, we had farmers and processors. I mean, everyone was sort of sitting at the table together and co-creating, but often none of those organizations had really interacted before. So, that was 10 years ago. Flash forward now, we have, particularly in the nonprofit sector and the advocacy sector, we have really deep relationships in the labor organizers working very closely with animal welfare advocates who understand that this is a system that is impacting everybody's interests, and so seeing them connect the dots, both in terms of what the issues are, but what the opportunities and the strategies are to move forward collectively has been really powerful. And then also seeing how advocates are working closely with policymakers and with the institutions themselves, but understanding that everyone has sort of a different role to play in the change. So, advocates are pushing from the outside, but institutions understand kind of what the role of advocates are, and that they're pushing from the inside. So it's just really amazing to see how these relationships all fit together if you're working towards the same North Star.
Thank you, Alexa. Well, we are at time, so I want to extend a very sincere thank you to Santana, to Catherine, to Aaliyah, Claudia, Chelsea, and Alexa. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories with us today and getting to engage. This is really fantastic. And for the audience out there, if you want to hear more stories of sort of transformation spotlighted, we'll be gathering again at 1:30 with another batch of great innovators. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you at the rest of the conference.